Snow moved sideways like it had somewhere to be. It cut through the cottonwood trees and turned the ground white and dead quiet. A woman walked through it, dragging burned cloth and old silence behind her. Her boots were worn at the toes. Her skirt carried soot like it belonged to someone who'd stopped hoping a long time ago. She didn't flinch when the wind bit her cheeks. She just kept walking like someone who didn't expect much from anyone. No wagon slowed for her. No doors opened. Her fingers were raw, her steps heavy. But what had ruined her wasn't the cold. It was how quiet people got when your life fell apart. How they looked the other way. How they shut their windows. She reached the edge of town right when the church bell rang once. Not a welcome, more like a warning. Smoke curled from chimneys. The general store's sign clattered in the wind. No one stood outside. She stepped over frozen ruts and walked into town. 2 boys saw her and ran. A dog barked once, then hid under a porch. She didn't stop, just pushed the store door open with fingers that barely moved. Inside, it was warm, too warm. It hit her like a slap. She stood still, soaking in the smell of flour and wood smoke. The woman behind the counter was counting matches, didn't even glance up. So Marbel cleared her throat. I'm not here to beg, just wondering if you need help. I can sweep or stack shelves, or just sit near the stove for a while. The woman looked up then, slow and sharp. Her eyes cut through Marbel like she was reading a bad history. I remember you. Jameson's wife. From up Stony Ford Ridge. Marbel nodded once. Heard it burned. House, baby. All of it. She didn't answer. The old woman shrugged. Well, God sends fire where he pleases. Nothing else was said. Marbel stepped back into the cold. The door clicked shut behind her. She walked toward the church. Her boots dragged now, catching stones. The wind howled louder. By the time she got to the steps, she couldn't feel her hands. The church doors were locked. She leaned against the railing, pulled her arms in tight. The bell tower rose above her, black against the snow. She didn't cry. Not anymore. She just stood there, letting the cold take what it wanted. Then the soft sound of feet in snow. She turned. 2 little girls stood nearby. Barefoot, thin coats, tangled hair. Maybe 6 years old, maybe less. One held a string with a broken locket. The other had a wooden button in her fist. They didn't speak at first, just stared. You hungry? One of them asked. Marbel blinked. You look like someone who doesn't have a porch. No, she said. I don't. The quieter one reached out, touched the edge of her skirt. Her fingers came back black. What's that? Soot. From a fire. Was it yours? Yes. The quiet one stepped forward and hugged her. Just like that. No questions. No caution. You want a home? The louder one asked. Marbel looked away. I want a place to be still. We don't got a mama, the girl said. But our pa needs a bride. We were waiting to find one. Marbel wasn't sure if she was being teased or asked into something real. She stared at them. Neither girl looked away. I don't even know your names. I'm June, the loud one said. She's Josie. Marbel looked toward the locked church. Then back at the girls. Come on, June said. We'll show you our place. She followed them, down a narrow path, past cottonwoods and a sagging fence. They led her to a house that leaned but still stood. Smoke came from the chimney. A rocking chair moved in the wind. Josie knocked twice on the door. June pointed proudly. That's ours. Pa built it with Mama. There was no answer from inside. June pushed the door open. We brought a bride, she called. Marbel nearly turned back. But she stepped in. It was warm. Smelled like stew. A shelf held tiny carved animals. A man stood near the fire, tall, quiet, scar down his brow. He didn't speak, just nodded once. The girls ran past him, one climbing into a rocker, the other curling near the stove. The man looked at Marbel and nodded again. This is the widow, June said. She's got ash on her skirt and sadness in her boots. Marbel almost laughed. He pointed at the chair near the fire. She sat. The heat made her fingers ache. Her eyes burned, not from smoke, from kindness too sudden to handle. He brought her a bowl of stew and left it there. Later, when the girls were asleep, she stood to leave. He blocked the door. Not angry, just there. You got somewhere better? He asked, voice rough like gravel. No. Then stay until you do. You don't know me. He looked at her. Neither did my wife at first. Her chest cracked open a little. She looked down. I can't give you what she gave. He didn't move. Wasn't asking for that. He pointed to a room by the fire. She turned to thank him, but he was already back at the bench, carving something small with a knife. Inside the room, it smelled of cedar and soap. One blanket folded neat on the cot. A basin of water, still warm. Someone had thought ahead. She didn't sleep. Just listened to the house. The soft sounds of the girls dreaming. The man's quiet carving in the dark. When morning came, she found her boots cleaned. The ash was gone. She stepped out onto the porch. Cold bit her skin. But for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like it was trying to hollow her out. The cabin was already moving when she stepped inside. Old wood creaked like tired bones. Colt, she had learned his name from the twins, stood by the stove, kettle steaming beside him. He didn't shave, didn't say anything, just nodded and placed a tin cup beside her. The coffee was bitter and hot. It burned a little, as she liked that. The twins came in soon after, still sleepy, their hair a wild mess. Josie climbed onto the bench and tucked her feet under herself. June started brushing out her sister's tangles with a carved bone comb. Colt glanced at Marbel once, then pulled on his coat and stepped outside with an axe. The door closed behind him without a sound. She didn't ask where he went. She cleaned the cups, warmed up old stew, and swept the hearth. The girls sat nearby, watching her like she was drawing invisible lines on the floor, and they didn't know if those lines meant stay or go. Do you know how to braid? June asked suddenly. I do. Can you do ours? Papa's braids hurt. Josie nodded with big eyes. Marbel sat behind them and gently worked through their hair. Her fingers remembered without trying. She told soft stories while she braided, words she didn't plan. They just rose from somewhere inside. The girls giggled. Josie leaned into her lap like it was the safest place in the world. When Colt returned, he stopped in the doorway and watched. Marbel didn't turn, but she felt it. Later, she found her boots near the fire, stitched at the seams with fresh thread. He hadn't said a word, but he was preparing for her to stay. That evening, she offered to cook. The girls clapped. Colt just moved aside. In the pantry, she saw an old apron, worn cotton, once white. She didn't touch it. Used a towel instead. The stew wasn't perfect. Too thin, a bit salty. The girls loved it anyway. Colt ate quietly. When they finished, the girls cleared dishes and Marbel stood at the window. Snow clung to branches outside like lace. Was your wife kind? She asked softly, without turning. A long pause. Yes. She didn't ask anything else. He didn't offer more. That night, she dreamed of a house where the fire stayed warm and the windows didn't rattle. The next morning, she heard hammering. She stepped outside and saw Colt fixing the porch rail. His coat was off. The scar above his brow caught the morning light. I can help, she said. He looked at her for a second, then handed her a nail. They worked side by side, quiet, hammer to wood. It felt like something was being built, not just the porch. By midday, her hands hurt, blisters forming. You're not used to work, he said. She raised her eyebrow. I've worked, just not for anyone who noticed. He gave a small twitch at the mouth, maybe a smile. That night, after the girls went to bed, she sat by the fire, one of Colt's shirts in her lap. She patched it. The buttons didn't match. She didn't ask if that was his doing or his wife's. Colt came in, wiped his hands, and stood there staring at the shirt. You don't have to, he said. I know. I didn't ask. I know. He nodded, then sat across from her and picked up his carving again. A block of wood in one hand, a knife in the other. The shape of a horse was starting to show. Time passed slow. Sweet. Quiet. That night, the girls woke up crying. Bad dreams. Josie clung to Marbel's neck. June sobbed into her arm. Colt stood in the doorway, helpless. I can sit with them, Marbel whispered. He gave a tight nod. She rocked them, hummed something soft, wordless. They fell asleep against her. She didn't move. In the morning, she woke still holding them. Both curled beside her, breathing soft. Colt brought in firewood. He didn't speak, just left an extra blanket on the back of the chair. That day, she made bread. It wasn't perfect, cracked at the top, a little overcooked. But the girls tore it apart happily. Even Colt ate it. She found a jar of honey and let the girls dip pieces of crust into it. Should we call you Mama? June asked, honey dripping from her chin. Marbel froze. Colt looked over, quick and sharp. Josie spoke gently. "You smell like home." Marbel's voice caught, then settled. "Maybe just Marbel for now." They nodded. No fuss. Later that week, she rode into town with Colt. They didn't talk much. It wasn't awkward, just quiet space between them. At the general store, Mrs. Tibbet saw them and smirked. "Well," she said loud, "that was quick, wasn't it?" Marbel stood still. Colt grabbed a sack of flour. "You do chores now for a man who won't say your name," the old woman added, lips curled. Colt didn't reply. Marbel looked at him. Something flickered in his eyes. Then he turned back to the sacks. That silence hurt more than the words. On the ride back, no one spoke. That evening, Marbel sat on the porch alone. The fire crackled behind her. Colt came and leaned on the post beside her. "I didn't answer her," he said. "No, you should have. I didn't think it mattered." She looked at him. "I've been a name no one said out loud before," she said. "It matters." He didn't say sorry. But the next morning, he was already in the kitchen when she woke. "Marbel," he said, "we're out of flour." She blinked. "I'll ride with you," he added. That afternoon, he set up a second cot in the girls' room. "Winter's still long," he said. She understood. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a beginning, a place to be without being asked to prove anything. The girls wanted to show her their secret. After supper, they pulled her by the hand and led her to the barn. Behind some crates and hay bales, there was a dugout space, barely tall enough to stand in. It smelled like dirt and old onions. Shelves held jars of pickles and beans, a chipped mug, and a lantern with half a wick left. "This is our treasure cave," June whispered. Josie held out a button. "For you. It's lucky." Marbel smiled and slipped it into her apron pocket. "It'll keep away bad dreams," June added. That night, after tucking them in, she returned to the fire. Colt sat nearby, carving again. He didn't look up. "I've got nothing to offer you," she said softly. He paused. "You sit with them when they're scared." She nodded. "You cook meals that don't taste like pine tar." She smiled at that. He set down the carving, a small bird with rough wings. "They need a woman who stays," he said. "I don't want to hurt them by leaving," she whispered. "Then stay. I don't want to be another ghost in their life." "You're not." He handed her the bird. It was uneven but strong. She held it carefully. "Maybe I'm not easy," she said. He didn't answer, but he reached up and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered a second, then dropped. He stepped away. She stayed near the fire, holding the bird, wondering how someone so quiet could say so much without words. Spring didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, wet ground, melting snow, chickens clucking more often. The sky turned softer. Grass peeked out from under the frost. But spring also brought gossip. She was hanging laundry behind the house, fingers red from the cold wash water. Shirts flapped in the wind. Somewhere in town, someone was whispering her name again. "She's not even kin," Mrs. Tibbet had hissed to the sheriff. "What right has she got raising those girls? She burned down her own home. Now she's in someone else's." The sheriff had shrugged. "Ain't no law against kindness." "No," Mrs. Tibbet replied, "but there's a difference between kindness and keeping a man warm without a ring." Marbel heard all. Even hours later, it rang in her ears. When she came home from town, Colt took the flower from her hands, but didn't ask why she looked pale. Inside, the girls were dragging sticks toward the barn, calling it castle. Marbel walked past them and into the house. Colt was near the stove, fixing a boot. "Do you think the town minds I'm still here?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. "The town minds everything. I heard Mrs. Tibbet talking to the sheriff." "I know. She said I didn't belong." Colt set the boot down. "Do you want to go?" "No." "Then stay." It should have been enough. But it wasn't. Not for the part of her that wanted more than a roof. She wanted dignity. A place no one could say she didn't earn. The next morning, the twins got into a fight outside the post office. Marbel wasn't there. Colt was tying crates to the wagon. Josie had told the boy that Marbel braided better than his mama. The boy said Marbel wasn't their mama, just someone their pa hadn't sent away yet. June pushed him. He pushed back. Josie bit his hand. By the time Colt broke it up, the boy's father was shouting. Folks watched through half-open windows like they were waiting for fire. Later that day, the sheriff came riding up the porch. Marbel was sewing. Colt met the sheriff at the steps. "Just talking, Colt," the sheriff said. But folks are saying your girls are wild. They need a woman with standing. Colt said nothing. Not that she ain't doing her best. But you understand. Marbel stood slowly, folding the blanket in her hands. I do, she said. Colt turned to her, jaw tight. The sheriff tipped his hat and rode off. Inside, the girls sat on the floor, silent. Josie had been crying. Are we bad? June whispered. No, Marbel said. You're good, even when others don't understand you. Josie sniffed. They said you weren't ours. Marbel felt something deep crack open. Not pain, older than pain. A kind of shame. I'm not your mama, she said softly. But I'm here, and I want to be. That night, after the girls went to bed, she stepped onto the porch. Colt was oiling the barn lantern. The sheriff came, she said. He nodded. They think I'm in your house, for your comfort. He said nothing. She looked toward the line where the sky met the trees. I need to know, why am I here? Colt set the lantern down. You make the girls laugh. You keep the fire going. You bring things back to life. But I'm not your wife. He looked at her. No. And you don't plan to ask. A long pause. Would you say yes? He asked quietly. She blinked. If I did. He didn't answer right away. Just turned up the lantern wick. Let the glow fill the space between them. Not yet, she said. I'm still figuring out who I am when no one's watching. He nodded once. That's fair. Then he stepped inside, leaving the door open behind him. She sat outside a long time, hands folded in her lap, the quiet pressing against her shoulders. Not heavy, just there. 2 days later, Marbel took the wagon into town alone. Colt had stayed to fix a broken fence. She offered to get sugar, needles, and a small jar of licorice drops for the girls. She walked down the boardwalk with her head high, even though eyes followed her like she was a stranger. At the general store, Mrs. Tibbet didn't greet her. Marbel asked for what she needed, her voice calm. After ringing up the items, the old woman tapped her fingers on the counter. Some say you're pretending, she said. Marbel didn't respond. Some say you're hoping for a wedding you'll never get. Marbel met her eyes. Some say a lot. Children need truth. They need safety, Marbel said quietly, and someone who doesn't leave when the talking starts. The room went still. Even the boy bagging flour stopped moving. Marbel paid and left without another word. The next morning, the girls were in the barn painting the feed barrels with chalk and mud. Josie had drawn stick figures. 4 of them, holding hands. One had big boots. One had a scar. One had wild hair. And one had buttons where a heart would be. That's you, Josie said, pointing. We gave you buttons so you won't fall apart. That night, she found Colt by the fire, carving again. She stood nearby, holding the bird carving Josie had lost. I went to town, she said. I heard. I stood up for myself. He didn't look up. That's so. She waited. He looked over. How'd it feel? Like I belong more here than I ever will there. He nodded. The girls painted you. They did. They see what's true. She stepped closer. Do you? He set the knife down. A new bird was taking shape in his hands. Not finished, but already real. I see a woman who's still choosing, he said. That counts more than anything people whisper. She sat beside him. You could say things louder, you know. He shrugged. Quiet words last longer. She smiled just a little. You ever think you could love again? He didn't answer, but he handed her the new bird. It had a crooked wing, fit in her palm like it was made just for her. The storm came without warning. By noon, the sky turned dark. Wind slapped the windows, rattled the shutters. Chickens ran wild. The twins rushed to the barn, arms full of dolls and dry corn. Colt was hauling buckets. The first flakes fell heavy, sticking fast. Marbel grabbed blankets from the line, her hands raw. The wind smelled sharp, like pine and cold metal. The kind that pulled up memories whether you wanted them or not. Girls inside, she asked as Colt passed her on the porch. He nodded. But Josie lost something. She keeps saying she dropped it by the creek. Marbel's breath caught. She's not out there, is she? Colt looked toward the barn. The door slammed in the wind. June came running. She said she'd be quick. She said she'd come back before the snow stuck. Colt's face changed. Not panic, something deeper. Tight. I'll find her, Marbel said. I'll go. No, she said, already pulling on her shawl. She needs my voice. Colt hesitated, then handed her a lantern. His fingers brushed hers. "By the split cedar tree," he said. "That's where they always play." The wind screamed. She went anyway. Snow slapped her face, stung her eyes. The path vanished beneath her feet. The trees blurred. She kept the lantern high, the light shaking in her hand. "Josie," she called, but the wind swallowed the name. She reached the creek, half-frozen, shallow. Near the bent cedar, something moved. A small shape, hunched behind a rock. Marbel ran. Josie was curled up, hugging her knees, her braid full of snow. "I dropped the bird," she said, tears on her cheeks. "The one you gave me." I looked and looked. Marbel knelt and wrapped her arms around her. "You're worth more than any carving," she said. "Don't you ever think I'd trade you for anything." Josie clung to her. "I didn't want to lose the thing you touched." Marbel stood, lifting the girl in her arms. "We'll make another." The trail was gone. Only snow now, thick and fast. She pushed forward, holding Josie tight. By the time they reached the house, Marbel couldn't feel her fingers. Her legs ached. Her dress was soaked through. Colt opened the door before she knocked. He took Josie without a word, held her like he was holding his whole world. June came running. "You found her." "She's safe," Marbel said. Josie whispered, "She came for me." "She always will," Colt said. The fire burned hot. Blankets wrapped around them. The storm thickened outside. Inside, it was quiet, the kind of silence that says thank you without needing a voice. That night, after the girls fell asleep under quilts, Marbel sat near the fire. Her dress steamed. Her feet hurt. Her shoulders shook. Colt brought her a mug of cider. She took it, hands trembling. "Why'd she go alone?" he asked. "She thought I'd be mad," Marbel said. "She thought the bird meant more than it did." Colt looked at the fire. "It did. It was the first thing I made since Mary passed." Marbel lowered her eyes. "I didn't know that." "Didn't need to." She held the mug tighter. "I never got to bury anything. The fire took it all. No stone. No name. Just ash." Colt's face softened. "I don't know what I am here," she said. "Not a wife. Not a mother. Not even someone folks respect." "You're here," he said. "That's enough." She gave a small smile. "I don't think it is." He walked to the mantel and pulled down a small wooden box. Handed it to her. "I was saving this for when I knew what to say," he said. Inside were small keepsakes, a ribbon, a locket, a paper with shaky letters. "June tried to spell your name last week," he said. "Said it felt like a name that stayed." Marbel touched the paper. The letters were all wrong, but it was hers. "Is this what the town thinks I don't deserve?" she whispered. He didn't answer, just let the question hang. She stood, opened her satchel, the one she kept hidden. Inside was the only thing she'd saved from the fire. A wedding ring, warped by heat. She placed it on the mantel beside the box. "I was someone else once," she said. "But she died." Colt stepped beside her. "Then who are you now?" Marbel looked down at the crooked letters. "I don't know, but I think the girls do." The thaw brought mud and murmurs. The fence posts leaned. Hooves sank deep. But it wasn't the melting snow that brought trouble. It was the way people watched again, after a winter too quiet. When folks got bored, they talked. And they didn't always talk kindly. They came just after midday. 3 men on horseback, neighbors by name only. At the front rode Hiram Blass, Colt's old rival, a man who always saw kindness as weakness. He pulled his horse up hard at the gate, flinging mud near the porch. Marbel was outside brushing sawdust off a quilt. Colt was chopping wood behind the barn. The girls were inside, stringing buttons into bracelets. Hiram tipped his hat, fake smile stretching his face. "Afternoon, Marbel." She didn't answer. "You got some nerve standing on a porch you don't own." Before she could speak, Colt came around the corner, holding the axe low. "This a courtesy visit, Hiram?" Hiram grinned. "Call it civic duty. Town's been whispering. You got a woman living here who ain't your wife. 2 girls calling her mama when there's no blood between them. Not illegal." "No," Hiram said, "but it's irregular. And irregular things make people nervous. Nervous people make poor choices." Marbel stepped off the porch. "What choice are you trying to make today?" Hiram glanced at her. His eyes dropped to her boots, her apron, the sleeve she had rolled up that morning. "Just wondering if you'll be moving on soon, before people start asking questions that don't have easy answers." Colt's voice was rough. "You came with 2 men to talk about gossip? Came to protect your interests?" Hiram said. Land disputes reopen easy if people get the wrong idea. You remember the southern fence line, don't you? The one the judge called unclear. He might rule different next time. Marbel stepped closer. You think this house is less honest because I help in it? Hiram looked past her. I think little girls deserve mothers whose names are in church books. Her throat burned, but her voice stayed calm. And you think I haven't earned a name? Colt dropped the axe gently into the stump. You're not here about land, Hiram. You're here because you can't stand that someone else found peace. Hiram's smile vanished. Marbel kept walking. Her boots sank in the soft ground, but she didn't stop. You want papers. You want names and ink. But papers don't raise girls. They don't clean wounds or chase children through snow. I've knelt in mud to find a child in a storm. I've taught 2 girls how to laugh again. But to you, I'm still just soot. One of the other men cleared his throat, looked away. Marbel reached into her apron and pulled out the locket. Opened it. Showed them the picture inside. My husband died trying to save our baby when the roof caught fire. This is all I have left. Not a house. Not a deed. Just this. And you want me to disappear so you can feel right about your world? Hiram shifted in his saddle. Colt stepped forward. Turn around, Hiram. You threatening me? No, Colt said. I'm standing between you and something I won't let you poison. Hiram's jaw twitched. His horse sidestepped. He spat into the dirt and tugged his reins. Town's watching, he said. You better decide what story you want them to tell. They rode off without looking back. Marbel watched until they were out of sight. Then her knees shook, not from fear, but from holding back everything she hadn't said in years. Colt stood still. The axe lay buried in the stump. You didn't have to speak, she said. He looked at her. Yes, I did. That night, she sat at the table folding a towel over and over. Colt came in, took off his coat, and sat across from her. Neither spoke. They'll come again. Yes. You want me to leave? No. You could stay with the widow Harper. Or go north to your cousin. I'm not going, she said. He watched her. I'm tired of running from people who never lifted a finger to build what they judge. He exhaled. It wasn't relief exactly. It was something deeper, like understanding. She stood, went to the hearth, pulled down a bundle she'd never opened in front of him. Inside, her marriage certificate, smoke-damaged. A child's spoon, half-melted. A ribbon burned at the edge. I didn't just lose a husband and a baby, she said. I lost the name people used to call me Real. Colt stood too, went to the shelf, took down the apron that had belonged to his wife. It hung like memory, soft and used. He held it out, not with ceremony, not with pressure, just with truth. Marbel stared at it. I don't want her place, she whispered. You've never tried to take it, he said. But this house needs a woman who doesn't leave when it gets hard. She took the apron. The cloth was warm from his hands, worn at the edges. Clean. He stepped closer. I don't have a ring, he said. Not yet, but I've got land. And 2 girls who believe you're the kind of strong they want to grow into. Marbel looked at him. And what do you believe? He didn't blink. That the fire didn't end your life. It prepared you for this one. She tied the apron around her waist. The wind scratched to the windows. Inside, the fire grew steady and high. The days stretched longer. Snow gave way to wet ground and tiny green shoots. The air changed, not soft but less cruel. Life kept on, and so did the whispers. But they didn't sting like they used to. One morning, Marbel walked to town with the girls. They wore mismatched shoes and carried a basket of eggs to trade. She held their hands tightly, not for safety, just because it felt right. I still followed her, but no one dared speak. Not after the visit from Hiram. Not after Colt stood up on that porch and called things what they were. At the store, Mrs. Tibbet didn't greet her, but she didn't insult her either. Marbel asked for sugar, flour, and 3 pieces of cloth, pink, green, and a soft yellow. For dresses, she said. The old woman didn't respond, just rang her up and looked away. On the way home, the girls skipped. Are we going to sew today? June asked. We are. Are we making real dresses or pretend ones? Real, Marbel said. Ones that last. When they reached the gate, Colt was waiting. He built a new step on the porch, solid and square. You did this? She asked, setting the basket down. He nodded. You were tripping on the old one. She smiled. You notice more than you say. He shrugged. I see what matters. They sewed all afternoon. Marbel worked the needle. The girls watched, then helped. By sundown, there was a dress nearly finished, rough but full of care. Josie ran her hand over the seams. Will it still be here tomorrow? She asked. Yes, Marbel said. It will. That night, Colt sat carving by the fire. Marbel joined him with a mug of warm tea. The room was quiet except for the soft scrape of his knife and the distant breath of the wind. Do you miss her? She asked. He paused. Yes. She nodded. I still talk to him. Not out loud. Just when it's quiet. He didn't answer. Just kept carving. She was good to you? She was kind, he said. Didn't like loud rooms. Laughed when she read books. Braided June's hair too tight. Marbel smiled. He set down the carving. Another bird. This one had its wings open. I think she would have liked you, he said. I'm not trying to replace her. You couldn't, he said. And that's why you don't have to. Outside, the girls called for bedtime. Marbel stood. I'll tuck them in. She stopped in the doorway. You never said whether you want to try again, she said. He looked up. Try what? Being loved? He stood. Walked to her. Not close. Just near enough. I don't know if I remember how, he said. Me neither, she replied. Then we'll take our time. She nodded and walked upstairs. That night, the girls wrapped around her like warmth. She slept easy for the first time in months. In the morning, the sun came early. She stepped onto the porch to find a note pinned to the rail. If the town talks, let it. The ones who matter already know. Colt. She folded it carefully and placed it in her apron pocket, next to the button Josie had given her. That day, she baked 3 loaves of bread. One was perfect. One burned. The third fell flat. But the girls still tore them apart with happy hands. Outside, Colt fixed the gate. Inside, the house didn't creak quite as much. They were making something. Not loud, not fast, but real. The wind that once bit her cheeks now carried warmth. The trees, once stripped bare, began to hum with green. The house no longer felt like someone else's memory. It had become a place where morning meant coffee, braiding hair, and the soft shuffle of tiny feet on old floorboards. Marbel moved through it without fear of breaking anything. One afternoon, she sat with the girls beneath the cottonwood tree, helping them thread buttons on a string. Josie picked out only red ones. June picked all the chipped ones. Why these? Marbel asked. They're the ones people don't want, June said, not looking up. But they're still good. Marbel smiled. You're right. A few days later, the preacher stopped by. He claimed he was just checking on neighbors. He stayed longer than he needed, asking polite questions with sharp eyes. Colt stood beside her the whole time, hands calm but still. Folks say things, the preacher said gently. Let them, Colt replied. When man finally left, Marbel turned to him. You sure about that? He nodded. People need stories. Let them make one if they want. We're living ours. Later that week, she opened the trunk at the foot of the bed and pulled out the warped wedding band. She held it for a long time in the light. Then she placed it in a small wooden box and added a note. This was one life. But not the last one. She set it back in the trunk and shut the lid. The girls grew louder as the days warmed. They sang while hanging laundry. They danced barefoot in the yard. One evening, they made her sit on the porch while they performed a show. It was silly, full of made-up songs and crooked twirls. But Marbel laughed so hard her chest ached. She couldn't remember the last time laughter had felt like it belonged to her. When the girls went to bed, she sat beside Colt near the fire. I think I'm ready, she said. He looked up, not for a ring, but for the life that might lead to one. He nodded slowly. I don't need anything more than that. She reached into her apron and pulled out the drawing Josie had made, the one with 4 stick figures holding hands. She had folded it into a small square and kept it near her always. They made a place for me in their picture before I made one for myself, she said. Colt leaned forward. That's what family does. Seize the whole before you believe it. They sat like that, fire soft between them. No promises, no rush, just presence. The next morning, the girls ran through the yard with new ribbons in their hair. Marbel stood on the porch, watching them chase chickens and swing sticks like swords. She felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been tight since the fire, since the silence that followed it. A wagon passed on the road. The driver slowed, looking at her like he recognized the woman from the story he'd heard. But he didn't wave, and she didn't flinch. Let them talk, she thought. Inside, Cole poured coffee into 2 cups. No words needed. She stepped in, took hers, and sat at the table where the sun hit just right. She had learned something in all the quiet, all the storms, all the stares and whispered names. That sometimes love doesn't start with a ring or a vow. Sometimes it starts with a warm bowl of stew, a child's laugh, a chair left near the fire, and the choice every morning to stay. The lesson was simple. You don't have to be written into someone's story the usual way to matter. Sometimes the story waits until you're strong enough to write your own name in. And when you do, it doesn't belong to anyone else. Not the town, not the past, just you and those who stayed to read it beside you.